Shalom, we are reading from the writings. Bam, we're reading from the introduction to the Book of Zar item 17. You can find the study materials in the study material tab in your boot system. You can also questions live if you ask a question from the study hall. Make sure you have a microphone and stand up and ask loud and clearly. Introduction to the Book of Zar 17. From all the above we thoroughly understand the third inquiry. We asked that when we examine ourselves we find ourselves to be as corrupted and as contemptible as can be, but when we examine the operator who created us, we must be exalted, for there is none so praiseworthy as he is becoming of the operator who created us, because the nature of the perfect operator is to perform perfect operations. Now we can understand that our body, with all its tearful incidents and possessions, is not at all our real body. Our real, eternal and complete body already exists in the first state, where it receives its complete form from the future third state, that is receiving in the form of bestow equivalence of form with n. And if our first state necessitates that we receive the shell of our body in the second state in its corrupted and loom form, which is the will to receive for oneself alone, is the force that separates us from n, so as to correct it and allow us to receive our eternal body in practice in the third state. We need not protest it. Our work can only be done in this transitory and wasteful body, for one does not correct that which is not in him. We're already in that measure of wholeness worthy and fitting of the perfect operator who has made us. Even in our current second state, this body does not blemish us in any way, since it is destined to expire and die, and is only here for the time necessary for its cancellation and acquisition of our eternal form. Any questions? No. Okay, let's continue. Item 18. This settles our fifth inquiry. How could it be that transitory, wasteful action would extend from the eternal? According to the above, we see that indeed we have already extended, as is fitting for his eternalness, eternal and perfect beings. Our eternalness requires that the shell of the body, which was given to us only for work, be transitory and wasteful, for if it remained in eternity, we would remain forever separated from the life of lives. We have said before in item 13 that this form of our body, which is the will to receive for ourselves alone, is not all present in the eternal thought of creation, for there we are in the form of the third state. Yet it is mandatory in the second state, in order to allow us to correct it. We must not ponder the state of the rest of the beings in the world besides man, since man is the center of creation, as will be written below. All other creatures do not have any value in themselves, but to the extent that they help man achieve his wholeness, hence they rise and fall with him without any consideration of themselves. Says here that we were born eternal, and this shell of the body is transitory, and so forth. In another place he gives the king's allegory that he prepares for his beloved son the best delicacies and music and everything, but the son is deaf and blind, and so forth. So what's the right way to look at it? Then it gives such examples that we have to go from the incomplete state to the complete state. We're on this path. We learned something in this way. We have a deeper understanding of who the Creator is, how good he is, and what exactly is our work, and that's it. It's all these changes are toward us, but it's difficult for a person, at least for me, to relate that way. I'm this wasteful transitory creature living only for 70 years or so, and I don't feel the goodness of the Creator in that. Yes, so it's hard to relate to what he says, that it's just all transitory and so forth. So what's the question? What to learn from it? What can we take from it? I understand the system is different, that the Creator created us in an eternal form, but you remind me of what he writes elsewhere, that you don't show to a person a work that is half done. Yeah, but that's how he built us. He built us as such ignorant and right, so we would learn from all the stages we have to go through who we are, probably to understand more correctly who the Creator is and what is our final stop to which we have to reach with all This learning that we acquire over time, and let's say I believe the end is good, let's say what does that give it? Let's you understand, have a better understanding what the end is, how you need to be completed with it, and what you have to reach in the end. It's all directed toward the end of the work. Will, wait, next, go on says we've already said that this form of our body, which is the will to receive for itself, doesn't even exist in the eternal thought of creation. Yes, and that's where we are in the third state. What is he saying us? That our life is a dream, an illusion, not real, that everything we think of is I don't know. That depends on the definitions. What is a dream? What is a not real form? What is a real form? But it's clear that we have to our relation to ourselves, to the Creator, to life, and advance toward his form, which is only to bestow. Yes, but he says this thing doesn't exist. What you see here doesn't even exist in the eternal thought of creation. Yes, all that we perceive ourselves as broken, all of that is it doesn't exist. So what do we do with that perception? Imagination. But that's what we have in front of our eyes. Okay, so you're living in a world that is imaginary, or that it doesn't exist forever. Of course it doesn't exist forever. Obviously, because what exists forever is only the complete form, and all the forms along the way are in order for us to improve in our thoughts, desires, intentions. He says this world doesn't exist at all, that all that you see doesn't exist in the thought of creation at all, but in our thoughts it exists. That's a problem. So it's not a problem, just accept it this way with respect to the Creator. From the perspective of the Creator, there's the final form, and that's where he leads us to all those forms that we imagine along the way in our imaginary world. Go on. 19. With this we settle our fourth inquiry. Since the nature of the good is to do good, how did he create beings that would be tormented and agonized throughout their lives? As we have said, all this agony is necessitated from our first state, where our complete eternity, which comes from the future third state, compels us to go either by path of T or by the path of suffering, reach our eternal state in the third state, and all the agony is felt only by the shell of our body, created only to be perished and buried. This teaches us that the will to receive for oneself and in us only was only created to become will to bestow, and the pains we suffer are but revelations of its nothingness and the harm in that. Indeed, when all human beings agree to abolish and eradicate their will to receive for themselves, and have no other desire but to bestow upon their friends, all worries and jeopardy in the world would cease to exist. We would all be assured of a whole and wholesome life, since each of us would have a whole world caring for us, ready to satisfy our needs. Yet while each of us has only a desire to receive for oneself, this is the source of all the worry, suffering, and woes and slaughter. We cannot escape. They weaken our bodies with all sorts of sores and maladies, and you find that all the agonies in the world are but manifestations offered to our eyes to prompt us to revoke the evil shell of their body and resume the complete form, and assume the complete form of the desire to bestow. It is, as we have said, that the path of suffering itself can bring us to the desired form. Bear in mind that the between man and man come before the mitzvah between man and the Creator, since bestowing upon one's friend brings one to bestow upon the Creator. Questions can yes wr in the previous item that there is nothing to ask about the other created beings, but only man, because everyone, all of them, are incorporated in man. And then he says we will only get to the good state if all the people of the world agree to take on the different form of the soul. So do we depend on all the people of the world are not there. It is all the creations of the world. Here it says all the people in the world. The difference is if it's talking about people or everything that was created. Also the other creations, meaning still vegetative, anim. Yes. More. Yes, it's written in item 17 that we received the wasteful transitory body in order to correct it, but then we get rid of it. So what does it mean to correct this body if then it disappears? Disappears because it's in order to receive. When we correct it, it disappears gradually. So what does it mean to Correct, because the whole goal is ultimately to get rid of this shell. No, but you shift it into in order to best, but here we're saying that this is called correcting it, but afterwards we completely dispose of this form and take on a different body feel. One, yes, we don't continue with the same body we received in the second state, we correct it, get rid of it, and then receive the third, because probably that will to receive that we will have after the correction during the 6,000 years of our desire is a new desire. Again, thank you. Yes, said basically the suffering has a purpose, that it's revelations, it's not for no reason. So when suffering comes, what do we ask? What's the prayer on top of the suffering? Can turn to the Creator and ask Him for corrections to correct our will to receive, which we feel and reveal now in a way that causes us bad feelings. What do we want to see in the suffering? In the suffering, we want to see the revelation of inequality between us and the Creator. Thank you. Again, he writes that all of these suffering only dwell on the shell of this body, which was only born for death. So this teaches us that the will to receive for itself was only built in order to be eradicated, abolished from the world, and be turned into a desire to bestow. Is it two different things? The shell of our body, which was only born for death and burial, and the will to receive in Him that needs to be eradicated and abolished from the world. No, is it the same then? Yes, okay, I thought, okay. Yes, how does the path of suffering lead a person to the purpose of creation? By the suffering, he wrote here, the suffering only shows us how incompatible but we are with our row, and in order to push us forward. What is the shell of the evil body? It's the intention to receive. The desire itself is not bad, but the intention to receive is bad. How do you cancel the shell of the evil body? Through prayer, first of all, because only the Creator knows how to do it. From PT 31, what do we lacking in order to justify the second state and work on it consciously as means for progress? We need to know the evil in us, that it is in an equivalence of form, and ask for correction. What could help us in order to hold on to the third state when we're in the second state? It seems like chaos when all of us together begin to work on the gap, on the difference between us and the Creator, which is our will to receive, and each of us and all of us together will try to pray to cancel it. We have nothing else to do besides that. From Women 21, what's the meaning of the end of suffering for man? That through his prayer he corrects the gap between him and the Creator. Africa, they ask why shouldn't we ponder the state of the other created beings but men, because they have no free choice in them and there no recognition of evil in them. From Women Turkey, what's the difference between bestowing to a friend and bestowing to the Creator? No difference. Turkey, we read in the first paragraph of item 18, our eternalness necessity states that the shell of the body, which is only given for us to work, will be wasteful and transitory, because if it would stay eternal, we would stay separated from the life of lives forever. So the question, what does it mean to be separated from the life of lives forever? I don't know. Disconnected from the Creator without any chance of returning to Him with some connection, basically this way. For they ask what to do with desires if we're not sure whether they're in order to bestow or not. We scrutinize along the way. No, let's continue. Mr. After all that we have said, we come to the resolution of our first inquiry. What is our essence? Our essence is as the essence of all the details in reality, which is no more and no less than the will to receive, as written in item 7. But it is not as it is now in the second state, which is the will to receive only for oneself, as it stands in the first state in its eternal form, which is reception in order to bestow contentment upon His Maker, as written in item 13. Although we have not yet reached the third state in actual fact, and we still need time, it does not blemish our essence whatsoever, since our third state is necessitated from the first. Teach all that is bound to be collected is deemed collected, and the need for time is regarded as a deficiency only where there is doubt whether one will complete what needs to be completed in time. But since we have no doubt about it, it's as though we have reached the third state, and that body too given to us in its present corrupted form does not blemish our essence, since it and all its possessions are to be completely eradicated along with the whole system of impurity, which is their source, and all that is bound to be burned is deemed burned, regarded as though it never existed, but the soul that is dressed in that body, whose essence is also purely a desire, but a desire to bestow, which extends to us from the system of the four worlds of ab exists forever. This is because this form of a desire to bestow is an equivalence of form with a life of lives, and is not in any way exchangeable. This matter will be completed below from item 32. Onward, we'll read item 21. Again, after all that we have said, we come to the resolution of our first inquiry. What is our essence? Our essence is as the essence of all the details in reality, which is no more and no less than the will to receive. It is not as it is now in the second state, which is the will to receive only for oneself, but as it stands in the first state, in its eternal form, which is reception in order to bestow contentment upon his Maker, as written in Adam 13. Although we have not yet reached the third state in actual fact, and we still need time, it does not blemish our essence whatsoever, since our third state is necessitated from our first stage. All that is bound to be collected is deemed collected, and the need for time is regarded a deficiency only where there is doubt out whether one will complete what needs to be completed in time. But since we have no doubt about it, this as though we have already reached the third state, and that body, who given to us in its present corrupted form, does not blemish our essence, since it and all its possessions are to be completely eradicated along with the whole system of impurity, which is their source, and all that is bound to be burned is deemed burned, regarded as though it never existed, but the soul that is dressed in that body, whose essence is also purely a desire, but a desire to bestow, which extends to us from the system of the four worlds of exists forever. This is because this form of a desire to bestow is in equivalence of form with the life of lives, and is not in any way exchangeable. This matter will be completed below from item 32 onward. Can short, yes, questions. So we're talking about some eternal part and some transient part, so it's all about what a person identifies with. Yeah, let's say so. If in the path of to a person initiates moving towards the Creator, but he sees the will to receive prevents him, so right so from that he comes to a state where he asks not to identify with the will to receive in order to receive. No, the will to receive itself is not a problem, only the intention. So how can the path of suffering also lead you to that state if there's no recognition of evil? Without recognition of evil you cannot correct anything, but if a person doesn't go towards correction in proactively, intentionally, then there's no will to receive that prevents me from reaching the Creator. I didn't understand. Speak a little slower. The will to receive in order to receive begins to feel that it cannot remain in the desire in order to receive, but rather it has to get rid of its intention to receive and shift to in order to bestow. Yes, and this is the path of Toye, and that's the path of Tar. In this he is according to how much he wants, how much he realizes that in order to receive his bad, for this he receives a force that corrects him. So what's not clear is in a path of suffering, which is where we are not actually correct, right? Yes, so how is this path also works to reach the goal? There's a part from the corrupt will to receive for which a person asks for correction, receives from the Creator, and corrects, and there's a part of the will to receive which you cannot ask for it and reveal it and correct it, and this remains for the suffering. So let's put it this way: there's a will to receive that it's entirely in order to receive a certain portion that is revealed, which that it's in order to receive you discover that it's bad for you, meaning you already recognize the evil which is in order to receive. The in order to receive you want it to be corrected. So let's say that with your prayer it will be corrected, and what you don't reveal is corrected as about to be corrected you remain with it for the time being, and you correct it after a much higher degree, so that what is the path of suffering, and the path of suffering is when you cannot ask for corrections, while the intention to receive is revealed and you are with them, and then they accumulate, and through them you come through the recognition of evil, through the suffering. What more can? Yes, you can explain the paragraph he writes. Although we have not come to the third state in practice, and we are still lacking time, it still does not blemish us in any way the inset of our being, because our third state is necessitated, is mandatory, because of the first state, and all that is deemed to be uncollected is deemed collected, and because the lack of time which is regarded as a deficiency, it's only in a place where there's a doubt, if you will, complete what needs to be completed at that time, and because we have no doubt about it, it is us as if we have already come to the third state, and that body in its evil form that is given to us now does not blemish our essence, since it and all its possessions are about to be completely revoked, along with all the system of impurity, and all that is deemed to be burned is deemed burned, and is regarded as if it never existed. So what are you asking? I'm asking, what kind of existence do we have in the second stage? Nothing, when we discover the gap between us and the Creator, and on that gap we pray that the Creator will cancel it. So we just constantly have to be recognizing, and just continue recognizing. Is that our work? No, you're moving to actions in order to bestow. It happens on me, but I'm like a spectator, kind of. Oh well, I don't know, let's say so then. What? Yes, you observe, and you discover that you're different from the Creator, and you're asking for correction over that difference. Yes, according to what we read in the last few items, I see corruptions in the friend or in the tea. How do I correct them? It's already another topic, but it seems to me like everything he's writing here we are in, we see corruptions. The corruption is in you, fine, but beyond it now I want to correct it. He says there are states of wholeness. The third state, what should I do? Draw corrections from there, try to depict a complete state, and you want to cancel the reason why you are opposite to the Creator. I'm different from the Creator, yes, and I see a friend as corrupted. That's why you see the friend is corrupted. Why can't I see him as corrupted? You don't see corruptions outside of you. If I don't look at the friend as being corrupted, and I'll really work on him being corrected, so I'll kind of ignore it. No, in order to advance towards corrections in the corrected third state, you have to correct yourself, and in seeing flaws in others, it indicates that you are corrupted. Intellectually, I understand what you're saying, but in practice, I do all kinds of things in a corrected way, and the friend isn't doing them. He does them in a corrupted way, so the friend is corrupted, and that's how it appears to you. Yes, but that's in practice what my eyes see. That's the way it is what I see, so you still can't discover the evil. So why do we sometimes say that we have to pray that the friend will be corrected to the extent that you feel that he is flawed? So I'm saying he's corrupted, that he's corrupted in your eyes, so you're asking for correction. Correction is in you. Everything is in me. The whole world is in me, but I want to correct it. I don't want to see the corruptions anymore. Then pray, fine, so now I need to pray. Yes, what do you ask? That the Creator will correct you, but I'm doing everything correctly. What's the correcting me? I'm doing everything correctly. Yes, think that all the corruptions we see outside of you, they indicate that these corruptions are all inside of you. Okay, fine, how do I describe the connection with the friends so I'll stop seeing these corrections? What do I need to do? You have to ask the Creator to correct you to the point that you see no flaw of outside of you. So this I need to draw from the third state. I have to connect to friend in the corrected state. I don't know. You'll ask from the Creator, and he'll set it up. What's the difference between ignoring the corruption I see in the friend and really correcting it? When you ignore the correction of the friend, meaning you shift the correction to yourself, and he say I'm to blame, not he. It's a corruption in me and not in him, and I need to make corrections, and I have to pray for myself. I have to see outside of me a perfect world. Fine, so the correction is Me, what do I need to correct? I'm working correctly. What do I need to correct? I can't ask from the bottom of my heart if I don't see corruptions, and may I see the corruptions in the friend. This is the problem. The problem is you see the corruption in the friend, and you need to be asking for correction on yourself. I'm willing to ask, but what should I ask? To not see the friend as corrupted, just like that I want to see the friend is corrected. Yes, I should cry this until I see the friend is corrected. Is that my problem, that I don't see the friend is corrected? Yes. Okay, in this whole article it talks about the system of the world that go through a way they have to be in bestowed. Suddenly, he tells us that bestow upon one's friend brings him to bestow upon, that that's the first time the matter of a friend comes in. Moreover, he says how we come out from the second to the third state, when all the people in the world agree unanimously to cancel the will to receive for themselves, and, if they have no other desire but to bestow upon their friends, they complete all the suffering, torment, slaughtering, and they there rewarded with a perfect life. Who are all the people in the world have to agree unanimously, and how come all of a sudden you have friends here? Until now he talked about the system of souls, and then correction. Why did the Creator do this, do that? What ways there are to correct? In what states? Suddenly a friend comes in. Who is this friend who is now taking me from the second to the third state? He even says more, the command between a person and his friend. Previously, we said a person has to bestow upon the Creator. The soul has to change his nature to bestow like the Creator, and suddenly there's something more important. There are commandments between man and man which are more important than the commandments between man and the Creator. Yes, what is he trying to tell us here? He wants to tell you where truly you have a problem, and the problem is how you see the friend. So that's it. How do you see them disconnected from me? I don't want was suffering problems. I want that you don't want the fact you don't want it. That's clear to us. What to bestow upon a friend, what appears to you is the extent to which you only care for yourself. That's clear. So you need to equalize your relation to yourself to your relation to the friend. What are you posing like that? What do you want me to do? It's like unjivit condition. Now that is impossible. He tells me you want to get rid of was trouble, suffering, and the fact it's impossible. That's that. I understand. We can see it on you. What next? I'm saying think about them, worry about them. Yes, if you can't, you can't. All right, so you pray if you don't feel that you need it. Then pray to feel that you need it. Okay. Cad, okay, go ahead. To be led astray by the phil officers who say that the very essence of the soul is an intellectual substance, and that it only exists through the concepts it learns, that it grows through them, and that they are its very essence. And the question of the remaining of the soul after the departure of the body depends entirely on the extent of concepts it has acquired, until in the absence of the concepts there remains nothing to continue, is not the view of T. It is also an accept, and anyone who ever tried to acquire knowledge knows and feels that the mind is a possession and not the actual possessor. But as we have said, the whole substance of creation, both the substance of the spiritual objects and the sense of the corporeal object, is no more and no less than a desire to receive. Although we said that the soul is entirely a desire to bestow, it is only through corrections of reflected light that it receives from the upper worlds from which it comes to us. The meaning of this clothing is thoroughly explained in the preface to the Wisdom of Kabbalah. Yet the very essence of the soul is a will to receive as well, and the only difference we can tell between one object and another is only by its desire. For the desire in any essence creates needs, and the needs create thoughts and concepts, so as to obtain those needs which to will to receive demands. As human desires differ from one another, so do the needs, thoughts, ideas. For instance, those whose will to receive is limited to beastly desires, their needs, thoughts, and ideas are dedicated to satisfying the will to receive in its entire beastliness. Although they use the mind and reason as humans do, it is however enough for the slave to be as his master, and it is like the beastly mind, since the mind is enslaved and served the beastly desire and those who will to receive is strong mainly in human desires such as respect and control over others, which are absent in the beast. The majority of their needs, thoughts and ideas revolve solely around satisfying the desire as much as they can, and those whose will to receive is intensified mainly for acquisition of knowledge. The majority of their needs, thoughts and ideas are to satisfy that desire as much as they can. What is he saying in the first two paragraphs when he comes to determine that the mind is a possession and not where possessor can be acquired, but like we learn something in school or university? What does it mean that it's not the actual possessor? It's the influence of the environment. What is it that I can communicate fulfillments from my intellect to another intellect, and it doesn't hurt my intellect at all? Does he mean logic, reason there? Reason desire is not that it's not exactly its fulfillment that we have from the mind or the intellect is what a person acquires from learning through the environment. Okay, this will be clear to us soon. More, but no more questions on item 21. No. Okay, so item 22. These three desires are present in most every person, but mingle in different quantities, hence the difference from one person to another, and from the corporal attributes we can deduce about the spiritual objects according to their spiritual value. Move on again. Understood? Yes. What does it mean, that last sentence? And these three desires are mostly in every person, however they merge in each one in different values, and that makes for the changes, the variations between each and every person. Last sentence, from the corporal attributes we can deduce about the spiritual objects. Yes. What does that mean? That like we have differences in our view on the world, likewise there are differences between us in perception of the spiritual reality. What does it mean? That from the corporal attributes, like there's a person, everyone is like an equalizer of desires. XPS more for honor, for control. He says accordingly you can deduce to the spiritual objects. What does that mean? Well, we don't really understand that, but more or less that's how it's so that like a person is unbuilt in an external corporeal form, he is probably also structured in his inner structure. In other words, a person's physical expression in this world testifies to his spiritual internality. Person with more tendency for honor or power, or for this or for that in spirituality, does he also have that root? Probably so, because we learn in the essence of the wisdom of Kabul, we learn the upper one, the lower one from the upper one, and we can never deduce from below. Upward here it says we can deduce about the spiritual object from looking at this world at corporal attributes. I can somehow deduce about spiritual attributes. Yes, that's what he writes. No correction, they die as they were born. Man has intellect which seems like an addition to the regular beast. What is this instrument that he received? How does it serve him in order to have an advantage over the beast? What is the use he can do with it? Its special device, that first of all it's the recognition of evil that he can achieve, and from here he can improve one who doesn't get to it. Then they all seem as beast. It's written about them that one is really only in corporal. In other words, man's intellect is only to make comparisons between existing and desirable in order to come to the corrected state. Is that it? Yes, thank you, that's it. Yes, are these forms of for honor and for knowledge, how are they connected to the separation between us in the second state? Why is it expressed in such desires? The corruption. Understand, I'll rephrase. How are these desires? He writes about tendencies in every person, like passion for money, for honor, for power. How are these desires connected to the second state? How do they separate us from the third state? In each and every desire there is what it perceives and what it's impressed by and what it's drawn to, and does that separate us from the corrected, from the desirable state? Yes. In what? Why? Depending on what you want, what kind of fulfillment you want to have in that desire. What is the need for the separation in the second state to clothe specifically these desires? Passions for honor, for knowledge. These are degrees of man's attraction And why does it separate us from the corrected state? Because you begin to engage in that, and that's where you stop. As so, in other words, in the corrected state, these desires don't exist in the correct state. No, everything becomes as a single desire aimed at the Creator. What is one desire that's directed toward the Creator? What is it all? The unify in a single desire, which is all aimed towards the Creator to bring Him contentment. These desires for honor, for power, for knowledge, for money, unite in the desire for everything. What does it mean that they unite in that desire? These desires, what does it mean that they unite in the desire to bring contentment? That their whole purpose is to bring contentment to the Creator. In other words, desires for honor, for power, for money suddenly become desires to bestow contentment upon the Creator. Yes, what happens to them? How does that shift happen? That if you have an opportunity, a possibility to use them in order to bestow contentment to the Creator, then you do use them. What is the right use of one of these desires in order to bring contentment to the Creator? The right use is that you see where you can use it to bestow. How can we bestow with a desire for money, for honor, for knowledge? How can we give contentment to the Creator? Try and see, should a person relinquish these desires in order to be able to give contentment to the Creator? Give it up in order to receive, and open them up in order to bestow. What does that mean, to open them in order to bestow, to use them in order to bestow contentment to the Creator? And what does it mean that they all unite in order to bring contentment to the Creator? That you can use them all. Thank you. Yes, good morning, teacher. It's an interesting phrase for me. For example, honor is more important than women, than money, but I have no spirituality in me. So what can I learn from this about spirituality in the meantime? Perhaps nothing, only degrees, but not more. What exactly is spirituality still can't be understood just from this excerpt. Can it be used in order to be sent, as you said? Is there such a thing? Yes, but on the degree at which you might be bestowing to friends, to people. Honor. Is this something I should relinquish or forget about, that it doesn't contribute to spirituality? We'll learn about it, but certainly money, honor, knowledge, we have to make concessions of them in general, or in some way, or in general. But it's a gradual process. There are degrees, and we're not talking about this world. It's not that, like, say you work now, so you give up your salary or some other things like that. That's not it. We have to understand this. We'll advance, and we'll better understand what's written here in one line. Can't tell you much, so why relinquish it? Honor is a basis for connection. If I don't respect you or him, how do I connect with you? Correct. I'm telling you it's good. Correct. But we'll learn. If he writes it, then we will probably can understand something, so we'll wait, we'll be patient. 24, we read 22, alright, so 23. 23 th spiritual human souls, through the clothing of reflected light they receive from the upper world, from which they come, have only a desire to bestow contentment upon their Maker. That desire is their essence, and the core of the soul turns out that once dressed in the human body, it generates needs and desires and ideas to satisfy his desire to bestow to the fullest, meaning to bestow contentment upon its Maker according to the size of its desire. Yes, it's not very clear. He's talking about the is a result, revealing the will to receive in order to receive, making a correction, and then it discovers the soul the desire to bestow in a way that also the spiritual human souls, through the clothing of reflected light, meaning somewhat corrected, that they receive from the upper world, from which they come, have only a desire to bestow contentment upon their Maker. That's what that spiritual soul wants. That desire is their essence and the core of the soul. It turns so far. Is it clear? No, that's exactly the question. Is what does it mean that the clothing of reflected light that they received from the upper worlds, well, let's say from himself, through all the upper worlds a light descends to her, to that soul, and gives her power, reflected light. But reflected light is what the lower one raises. No, he receives it from above, and then he can use it. It receives it strength from above. Yes, so the strength to use reflected light is the niche, is the soul he's talking about. Yes, I get it. Okay. 24 item 24. The essence of the body is but a desire to receive for itself and all its manifestations and processions are fulfillments of that corrupted will to receive which had initially been created to be eradicated from the world, in order to achieve a complete third state at the end of correction. For this reason it is mortal, transitory, and contemptible along with all its possessions, like a fleeting shadow that leaves nothing in its wake, since the essence of the soul is but a desire to bestow, and all its manifestations and possessions are fulfillments of that desire to bestow which already exists in the eternal first state as well as in the future third state, immortal and irreplaceable. Rather it and all its possessions are eternal and exist forever. Absence does not affect them whatsoever at the departure of the body. On the contrary, the absence of the form of the corrupted body greatly strengthens it and enables it to rise to the Garden of Eden. Thus we have clearly shown that the persistence of the soul is in no way depends upon the concept it has acquired, as philosophers claim. Rather it is its eternity is in its very essence, in its desire to bestow which is its essence, and the concepts it acquires are its reward, not its essence. Short questions. What remains of a person when the body dies? The body means the flesh. Yes, that's what I perceive, that's understand what he managed to acquire before. So with its concept and intellectual things, nothing remains. What remains from a person after he dies? What are you reading that you're completely not understanding? What's going on? I'm asking. He writes it, he and all his positions that are eternal and exist forever, and absence does not affect whatsoever at the departure of the body. On the contrary, other corrupted form of the body strengthens them. I didn't read the whole thing, so regard what remains of a person, how much he can move towards the desire to bestow. That's the inclination. He as P. If he hasn't entered P, he has nothing left. So what does it mean that something remains, and what's before and after? What does that mean? Let read. Ken. Yes, sorry, the previous things we read I can't. How can there be a reality of time and the eternal reality in our time? There's a process here, and the state. There are states that don't belong to, not bound by the time that passes. According to your second states we have to go through, so how can there be an end to the states? And there is no such states like that. How can such a reality exist? I don't even know how to ask it, but it's so not clear how it could be that at some point this reality will be canal, where something certain number of stateful PTHS that exist, and all of a sudden person just like B writes there. Eventually he needs to recognize that at some point there is good, there will be a third state. Question is whether at some point really the second state ends and the third state begins in a true way, or I'm just identifying myself in a certain state and what will be with me where we come to the end of the states. Or can I, am I supposed to come from the state in second state and recognize it, and also recognize the third state phase, and the second state does it disappear? The second state disappears, it goes to becomes the third state for everyone. If we're talking about the final correction, that certainly everyone sounds like there were states that ended at some point. They're like this countdown at some point from the beginning of creation that's advancing. At some point it will end. Yes, past and present. If we were to understand this as far as eternality, it's not clear how there could be a process that has a beginning and an end, and after it's ended, then what? Where did all that exist? And does it still exist relative to those who are in development? Everything is relative to the person who attains it. That's why that's what we learned. Another thing that he writes here, that we lack time, and that's a deficiency. We can understand. What does that mean? That we're no time now, we can't see from one end of the world to the other. We lack the mind for it. Say that the essence of the soul is the desire to bestow, and that knowledge is only in the reward. What is that reward? What does it give? What it receives in exchange for trying to get along in that world in which it exists. There's an essence and there's the reward. Yes, so what's the benefit of the reward? The benefit of the reward is that it can receive the reward as we Call it an advance using it, or the reward eventually becomes the essence to the desire to be. Still the reward becomes a fulfillment according to the fulfillment. To the filling it climbs up the degrees. Just understand what is this knowledge that he's talking about according to the extent it's in. That system it understands and feels and works according to the powers that she is. That's some intellectual thing that a person acquires knowledge. It's an experience. No knowledge he's talking about is like experience in life and all that a person goes through. Yes, but experience in spiritual life by correcting himself and climbing, also falling, but all those outcomes from the path they bring him these concepts. So what's the connection between knowledge and the essence that he writes? That is the desire to bestow is con between them. As much as he continues on the path, he identifies himself with the W to bestow. I simply want to understand whether this experience helps a person move towards the desire to bestow. Those attempts also true. That's also true is the spiritual soul always, besides the physical body of the other person. Does it clothe it at some point? Everything clothes inside one another like a skin and clothing. You want to ask. So he says that the soul is the desire to bestow, and it's one that went through the correction. Yes, instead of receiving it's taking out. This is moving us on from these worlds to those worlds. When it exists, it's clear that the mechanism works in that way, and now a person is looking for ways to be filled with that desire. Yes, what is the filling of the desire to bestow? According to equivalence of form with the creator, person feels equivalence of form with the creator as feeling. Or do I feel it like as the thing is for hunger or all the other things? Yes. And how does it even happen? He doesn't even talk about how this inversion of this engine happens. No, in general he's being very short about everything. Also from the thing he says, know that the commandments between man and his friend are advancing us, and from a person wanting to bestow to a friend, he all of a sudden wants to bestow to the creator. How that? What's the connection here? By bestowing to his friend, he far a feeling. What does it mean to bestow to someone outside of you? And that's how he comes to bestow to the creator. What is to bestow to a friend? Bestow to the friend means that I detect in him certain desires and feelings that I can help him acquire. Yesterday you said a sentence that you have a lot of work and you didn't start yet. And when you asked what that means, he said that each has to make room in his heart for their friends. How does that happen? That thing. How does it making room in your heart for your friends, or it's not for? Now what is that advice to bestow to a friend? If I need to feel the friend in order to bestow to him, right? We have to feel the vessels that exist outside of a person in order to bestow to them. Yes, pray for them today. I don't feel those vessels. Maybe in a very limited way I see that a friend has a certain need, and I'm not certain what. So what do we advance? We advance. That is why we have the 10, and you must incorporate in the desire of the other, and so on so forth. But as far as I'm concerned, it's all games. What me games? There's nothing more important than that. The game is very important, but I don't really feel the friend I as if I'm trying. So even more that with the fact that you don't feel it means that you have to invest more in that. I'm investing more in the game, still trying to feel the friends, but I don't really feel them inside of me. Certainly not the way I feel myself. That's clear. So when does the game become reality? That depends on you as much as you bestow to the friends. So you advance toward bestowing to the creator. There's nothing more to say. You heard 1,000 times. So if you remain wise, you'll remain with your wisdom. I'll go back to the paragraph it was read, and it's a very. And while all the people in the world will agree unanimously to eradicate from the world themselves, and they'll have nothing for themselves, only to bestow to their friends, then all the concerns and all the harmful ones will be removed from the earth, and everyone will live in a healthy life. In short, it will be very good. Whole thing is that all the people in the world will agree unanimously. We in the 10 agree unanimously that really the desire to receive is a horrible thing, and we want to cancel it and to bestow to one another. We agreed. We said we had a gathering of friends, and We all agreed it's not happening, this agreement. The agreement is just unanimous, and although we agreed all to it, and then, what's next? I don't see it happening, and then if they cancel out this, all the harm things will go away, and these are actions from above, meaning after there's this agreement, and after we have adhesion in the T between us and agreement where we have to reach, which is also expressed in our prayers, then accordingly we activate using our prayer the upper system, and it begins to care for us already on and a new level when we discuss matters like sufferings and woes. I identify that sometimes you answer like yourself. Now that in our eternal essence, everything is whole and perfect, and these are corrections that we're going through along the way, but in truth for our essence the Creator is caring for us in wholeness, and sometimes there's lessons where people ask you about the Holocaust and tragedy and you don't answer. Question within reason, we say there are things that we can't yet understand, and you kind of like leave it open. So I wanted to ask, mostly when we answer to students, is there a reason why? Sometimes you give an explanation and sometimes you don't give an explanation or an answer to it. I don't give an answer, which in our mind, our intellect, we cannot. Just I'm mostly asking, we'd like new campuses opening, and we have students that are coming now, and they just experienced loss in the most horrible states possible, and this explanation that we are points in the heart, and they're already in, and everything is a very logical, beautiful explanation, but the pain is so present in them that I am in concern of how to answer correctly during this period of time to such questions, if there is a formula, or we just need to feel the moment, or I didn't understand the question. I'm sorry. We have campus students that have experienced traumas and tragedies right now, so the explanation, everything is whole, just the bodies are being changed. It's a very simple and logical explanation. On the other hand, when the pain is so burning within, I'm trying to understand what's the best and most correct, purposeful way to answer, if there is a formula or an approach to how to explain this thing and clarify it. We can't do it. It's like you can't explain to a child things that for you seem simple and clear. It's the same for us. There are many things that even to one another between us we get stuck on. They're not thing you can do. What I doing next? It's interesting, most of these questions here are from men. Good morning, or thank you for giving us the possibility to ask 2 questions. With your permission, I'll ask the first. He talks about the topic of the stages of our work between the second and the third state, the transitions, according to what's written here, and I'll read with your permission. This is from 17. Although our state in number 1 is, it gives us the second state, the shell, to that body in its despicable state, which is the desire to receive for himself, which is this force of separation from, in order to correct it, and enabled us to receive our eternal body in its complete state of the third state, and we should not be worried about that, because our state is only in this body that comes and goes, and there's a person can't correct the thing there that he doesn't have in him. Is our main work in the second stage. Doesn't matter if the primary work is in the second stage or third, or when what's next. It jumps to item 20, where it says there's a reality where the soul is actually suckling from ends with intention to bestow, and the body seemingly remains in its current state of the desire to receive. How can such a reality be where the soul and the body are not in the same stage? That's what he writes, and for the time being I need to accept it. I accept what I just wanted to add, and for the correction as C, that is in the third stage of the personal private correction, and not the general correction. That's what he feels. He hasn't gone up from that stage. That's why he can only speak about the general stage. And if I ask another thing, I've seen an opposite world when we read all these paragraphs. It's like a sandclock that is being flipped over. Whatever the Creator gives us, the moment we turn around and we start bestowing, we start to see the whole real is that the state that he wants to see us in this project of educating us, of guiding us. Okay, thank you. How can we draw the reflected light that comes to us from the upper worlds into our vessel, so that the whole soul will have a desire to bestow? How can the body that wants to receive attain that according to the reflected light. According to the reflected light it's that his generating he can receive to receive reflected light, that the souls of people which they receive through their reflected light, they just need to return to bestow contentment to their Maker. How can we come to such an exalted state? These are exercises that we have to do on ourselves. Try constantly to be in bestow as much as possible in various forms, and then we receive this opportunity. How can we do this exercise that will bring us to bringing bestow to the Creator? For the friends, thank you, Rob. A question from a friend: I heard that I have to see that the friends are in a corrected state. Can I bestow to the 10 by praying for myself to be corrected in order to advance the 10? Yes. You take the corrupt form of the friend. You must ensure that you correct it. Africa. T. Repeat. Can you repeat? Please. Repeat. Please. Is it possible that during the work one can feel? Can I feel in the second state, the final third state of the vitality of in self? How? No, of course. Not of course you can't. What do we have left? Here Moscow 18. Woman. In the beginning of the article it says that we look at the Creator who created us, so it's like the Creator is working. Who's he working for? Maybe there's a problem with the translation. When we look at the Creator who created us, we need to imagine we in essence resemble him. We must grow up to his level, to his size. It's you translated this article and you said that like a master, like her. It doesn't matter. So before we move to the next part of the lesson, we have an announcement. Dear friends, remind you that on March 23rd we will have a Unity Day for Poem, increasing joy. For details and registration, enter the site convention C.1, and we're going to move to A. So, is there a chance for love to go around the world and everybody here? The broken heart is clean. Has everybody seen what all the walls can bring? Now love will be the choice, a song for each and every human voice. We know we can't go on chasing dreams through there. Die now. Everyone is here sharing one heart. There are vows from some distant place, and we hear him growing louder and louder each day, all around the world, around the world, all around the world, around the world. For is Mishma. I wasn't hearing anything. Were you guys hearing the music? Can you hear me clearly? Okay, no, nothing at all. I'm going to log out and back. Reading the readings of Rush. The article: why the speech of Shabbat must not be as the speech of weekdays in the work. The article: why the speech of Shabbat must not be as the speech of a weekday in the work. It's written in the said the Lord will fight for you while you keep silence. Are started if because of the Sabbath you turn your foot from doing what you wish and from speaking words, so your speech of the Sabbath will not be as the speech of a weekday. Each day one must show a deed and evoke awakening below from what he should evoke. However, on Sabbath one should awaken only in the words of their Creator and the holiness of the day, and not on anything else, since on the Sabbath there is no need for an awakening from below. Come and see here, when Pharaoh drew near to make war with Israel at that time, the Creator did not want Israel to evoke an awakening from above at all, sorry, from below at all, since there was an awakening from above, as it is written, the Lord will fight for you and you will keep silent, since the name of mercies must awaken on them, because an awakening from below would only activate judgment. We should understand the adjacency of the Lord will fight for you and Sabbath and Shabbat, and why each day we need an awakening from below, but on Shabbat we do not need it, because on Shabbat there is only an awakening from above. We should also understand what it means that on Shabbat we should engage only in the words of the Creator and the sacredness of the day, known that there are two things before us: one, the lack, which is yearning. Without a lack a person cannot feel pleasure, even if this thing is the most important thing in the world. If he has no lack for the matter, although he can receive it but not enjoy it, since this depends on the measure of his yearning for it, and we have a time of lack, and then it is the time to receive more lack. Each time feels a lack, he goes to feel the lack. If it is hard for him to obtain that thing, we do not say that he tried in vain to obtain it, but rather that he did obtain something. He obtained, as CLE called, yearning. In other words, he obtained the filling right away this feeling would not be regarded as a feeling with regards to pleasure, which is the main purpose, as we learned that the purpose of creation was his desire to do good to his creations, meaning that they will receive delight and pleasure. Follows that if a person receives something without effort, meaning that he did not have the time to obtain the CLE to receive the pleasure called yearning, the pleasure he should receive. For it the feeling cannot yield the pleasure because he has no CLE to receive their pleasure, for the CLE to receive pleasure is called yearning, and in order to receive yearning for something, it depends on time, meaning time for feeling the lack. Follows that when a person prays to the Creator to satisfy his need, this too depends on the amount of time he has been praying for the Creator to satisfy his lack. For this reason the Creator first helps him by the growing of the CLE within him, called a CLE of yearning, meaning that the Creator hears his prayer, and the reason why person does not receive the filling for his prayer right away, he should say that this is not so, but that the Creator does hear his prayer and is increasing the yearning within him, so he will have a real CLE to feel the pleasure. It follows that if he were to receive what he wants right away, he would not be able to enjoy because of the lack of yearning. By this we will understand what our sages said to the wicked: the evil inclination seems like a hair's breadth, and to the righteous like a high mountain. However, first we must understand, when we speak in terms of the work, what does in terms of the work mean? The thing is that there are two manners in observing, and one doing, which is regarded as action. He learns he observes in all their details and precisions, and there is nothing to add to this. Indeed, in terms of actions he is considered righteous. Pure work, which is work in the heart, in the words of our sages, a prayer is usually called work, for a prayer is called work in the heart, which is an intention, meaning the intention of the heart. That is, a person should aim while observing why he is observing the weather, for his own sake, or does he aim for the sake of the Creator? For this reason we should discern between righteous and wicked in terms of the action, and righteous and wicked in terms of the intention. Terms of the actions: the righteous are the ultra orthodox and the wicked are the secular. But with respect to the intention, righteous and wicked go by a completely different order. In other words, in terms of the action both are righteous, but with regards to the intention there is a difference. Righteous are those who work for the Creator, and wicked are those who work for themselves. However, in terms of the work, both are righteous, and when we want to walk in the work, meaning with the aim of the heart to intend that all his work will be for the sake of their Creator, then begins the order of the work. That is, the wicked in his heart, which are called, will receive for oneself, resist working for the sake of their Creator. However, God has made them one opposite the other, meaning that to the extent that he wants to walk on the path of truth, to that extent the truth about the evil within him appears. When one has a small desire to walk on the path of truth, meaning to do everything for the sake of the Creator, his evil is small as well, since one opposite the other. In other words, to the extent of the cus in him, so is the resistance to it. Follows that the more he advances is in the work and wants to go more on the path of truth, the more the evil surfaces. By not letting him cancel the evil, and the evil exerts to control more forcefully, it follows that anyone who is greater than his friend, his inclination is greater than him. Therefore it follows that one who wants to be righteous, that is, his actions will be for the sake of their Creator, the evil grows within him. This is why they said to the righteous, the evil inclination seems like a high mountain. In other words, the evil ascends each time. Mountain in Hebrew means reflections, that is, he had bad reflections, meaning that each time the bad thoughts increase and become a high mountain. But to the wicked, those who do not mind the intention, make it in order to bestow, but believe that they are working, and that from they come to and rely on it, and say glory will finally come, meaning that only when they have a desire to aim for the Creator, they will certainly have the power to overcome and do everything for the sake of their Creator, since their bad seems to them like a hair's breath meaning that it is not so difficult to aim. The reason is that their bad is not so great as was said, since their good is small, meaning the desire to do everything for the sake of the Creator is small. The proof of this is that they do not have a need to begin this work, so the bad in them does not need to show the evil within it, and resist him. Therefore the evil inclination seems to them like a hair's breadth. This means that none of them is lying, but each speaks according to his feeling. Accordingly, we understand the meaning of extending the light and the meaning of extending the CLE, that is, we still do not have the CLE for reception of delight and pleasure, measure called yearning, since this depends on man's work, that specifically through the work there is development for this CLE called lack, and yearning. The CLE is acquired specifically through labor, meaning without labor it is impossible to obtain the CLE, meaning the need to acquire vessels of ball. This means that the very obtainment of vessels of ball are already called light, that is, this is something that comes from above, called assistance from above. For obtainment of the vessels of ball, it is known that there are two discernments to make in the light: one, to obtain vessels of ball, meaning the vessels, namely desires which were previously outside of, meaning that these desires could not be used in order to bestow. This light is named after the vessels, since the light comes in order to correct the vessels. This is called the light of posterior after the vessels, for the vessels are called the posterior with respect to the light, and the light is called pim, the face. In the work this is called assistance from above, as it is said in the Set, he who comes to purify is aided, and it asks with what, and the answer is with a holy soul, that is, he is given from above a light that is called nish soul, and this light purifies the person, so he will have the strength to bestow upon the upper one. First, the light comes from the giver, so this light gives one the strength to be able to work in order to bestow. It follows that in the order of the work we should discern the following. State 1. When a person awakens to emerge from what he has from his upbringing, he feels that he cannot be drawn to the general public who engage in and with the same understanding they had when they began to observe. To this understanding and feeling have been going on for them for a long time, but they are not making any progress in except in quantity. But as for quality, meaning to have more of a feeling for the importance of, they do not have it. They wonder how it is possible that there will be no progress in the quality. The since it is written about and for they are our lives and the length of our days, but in that sense they are not advancing whatsoever. Therefore they go look for a place where they can obtain the progress in terms of the greatness and importance, so they will feel that they are our lives. The second state, when we begin to walk on the path to achieve, for they are our lives. Our sages tell us that the advice to come to feel the life that is found in is adhesion, as it is written, and to cling on to him, that is, cling on to his attributes. As he is merciful, so you are merciful. This means that as the Creator wants only to bestow, so man should come to such a degree where he wants all his actions to be only to bestow and not for his own sake. Here in the second state, when he wants to ascend in degree and observe to in order to bestow, he receives the first assistance when a person is notified that he is far from the quality called. In other words, although before he began the work of bestow he knew that there was the matter of having to work called for the sake of the Creator, and he believed in what our sages said one should always engage in and even if from he will come to, but it never occurred to him that in order to work well one needs a miracle from above, for it is impossible to emerge from the control of the will to receive for oneself. This is so because if a person has only a little bit of good, cannot be given a lot of bad, for he will not be able to subdue it, and will immediately escape from this work. When a person begins to work with energy in order to come to work in order to bestow, he is given according to his work a sensation and awareness how far he is from. It follows that the first assistance he receives is the revelation of the evil in him. This is called hardening of the heart, as it is written, for I have hardened his heart. This is regarded as obtaining the of the posterior of is called pim and panem is considered something that illuminates, as he says. We must first understand what is the meaning of the face of the creature about which the writing says I will hide my face. It can be thought of as a person who sees his friend's face and knows him right away. However, when he sees him from behind, he is not certain of his identity. He might doubt perhaps he is another and not his friend. So is the matter before us. Everyone knows and feels that the Creator is good, and that it is the conduct of the good to do good. When the Creator generously bestows upon his creations, is considered that his face is revealed to his creations. Then everyone knows and recognizes him when he behaves with his creations the opposite of the above. Men, meaning when they suffer afflictions and torments in his world, it is considered that the posterior of their Creator, for his face meaning his complete attributes of goodness, is entirely concealed from them. Therefore, in that state, if he can accept the posterior, that which is called exile, and does not run, but rather, and they cried out to the Lord to deliver them from their exile, then he accepts the and says that it comes from the Creator, and he asks him that he made him feel the taste of exile, so he will help him emerge from exile. This is called the second state. The third state is the second assistance, when he receives assistance to obtain vessels of ball, which is regarded as emerging from exile, where he was under the rule of self-love, through the assistance from above, which is called that the Creator is giving him a soul. This light gives him the vessels of his, as we learned that when the light of called light of comes and brings out the vessels often, and that fell into the shells, having been placed under the governance of receiving in order to receive, which is called this light of brings them out of the seaput, meaning it gives strength for these vessels to be corrected in order to bestow. This is regarded as these vessels entering the user, meaning that he can already use them in order to bestow. This is called the exodus from Egypt. The fourth state, when he receives the light that dresses in vessels of ball. That time the 613 mitifi are called 613 deposits, meaning he obtains a different flavor in each mitzvah. This is the meaning of that in each mitzvah a special light is deposited, which belongs to that. This is similar to capital pleasures, where there is a taste in meat, and there is another taste that is clothed in fish. Likewise, in each mitzvah there is a unique flavor, at that time a person comes to feel that the matter of tea and is as in for the ayur our lives and the length of our days. This is so because he has obtained from the Creator the vessels of best called equivalents of form, and in these vessels the delight and pleasure that was in the purpose of creation is clothed. Now we can understand what we asked about. The Atsi of the Lord will fight for you, and you will keep silent, and Shabbat, since the work on obtaining the vessels of ball comes by obtaining the state of G of their evil, as it is written, for I have hardened his heart, meaning the attainment of the bad. Then when the people of Israel came to a state where they saw that they could not escape from the bad, meaning they saw that the power of the bad was on all sides, and they did not see any salvation by nature. This is considered that the CLE of the bad has been completed. At that time comes the time of the fifth state, when the Creator gives them the light, and this light reforms them. In other words, by this they emerge from the governance of evil, called vessels of self-reception, and are rewarded with vessels the ball. This is the meaning of stand by and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will do for you today. This means that once the CLE of the bad has been completed, there is room for disclosure of light on the part of the upper one. This is considered that the Creator is giving them the vessels of be. It follows that this work of inducing the bad is work that pertains to the non-holy, that is, work and whole are one and the same, meaning one discernment, as it is known that in there is no work, since when a person has vessels of be, he enjoys giving. When he still does not have vessels of bestow, it is a great effort when he must give something without receiving anything in return, since it is against man's will to receive. This is why it is called and not holy, and this is why it is forbidden to work on Shabbat, since Shabbat is a time of rest and not of work. In other words, Shabbat indicates which is the time when through the Shabbat light shines because of the awakening from above. For this reason one does not need to work on increasing the bad as in hardening of the heart, since then is the time to speak only of what the Creator gives and not to speak about man, who must receive and think whether he is cleansed of self-love and must correct their vessels. The work on the bad pertains to and not to holiness, since seeing the bad the state he is in pertains to man's work, that is, he looks at himself and wants to see his state of loneliness and how he should pray to the Creator and pay attention to whether he is advancing or to the contrary. In other words, when a person works, this is the time for a person to be seen, meaning to see his deficiencies, what he lacks. But when speaking of an awakening from above, meaning what the Creator does, we must only look at the Creator, meaning what he has to give, namely to see the meaning of the holy names, for each name indicates attainment. For example, when we look at a person and see that he's rich, the name of that person is wealth, and if we see that the person always heals the sick, then he is called healer of the sick. Therefore, when speaking of the Creator, sometimes he is called who heals the sick, and sometimes nourishing and sustaining or redeems the captives, etc., meaning all according to what we see that he gives. Therefore, Shabbat is a time of awakening from above, which pertains to what the Creator gives. We must see and examine the names of their Creator. This we will understand the adjacency of what is written: the Lord will fight for you and you will keep silent. And it is so because when they were already complete in terms of the evil, meaning when they saw that it was impossible to emerge from the bad in a natural way but only by a miracle, this is regarded as the evil being completed sufficiently. At that time the help from above should come to give them the light to complete their vessels, meaning that the vessels of reception will acquire the form of bestow. This does not pertain to man's work. This is why it is written, you will keep silence, since now is the time when the Creator gives. Also on Shabbat, which is an awakening from above, we should speak only of what the Creator has, as he says that a person that on Shabbat we should speak only of the words of the Creator and the sanctity of the day, since Shabbat is an awakening from above. Conversely, on other days, meaning weekday, there should be an awakening from below, meaning to invoke the lacks that are below among the created beings, and to ask that the Creator will satisfy their LCKS. Now we can understand what we asked about the adjacency of you will keep silent and Shabbat. You also understand why on weekday we need an awakening from below, and on Shabbat it is only an awakening from above. Also we will understand what is so your speech of the Shabbat will not be as the speech of a weekday, and we will also understand why on Shabbat we must speak only about the words of the Creator and the sanctity of their day. Thank you, dear. It's written, when they were already done with the matter of their bad day, there was no possibility to exit the bad from the way of nature, only from by miracle. What does it mean to emerge through the way of nature? Hone will come to it and see along the way, just like we come out of certain things this world. You cannot come out of the evil that the Creator arranges for us, but only by rising up from the degree where a person is at, then he can emerge from the evil. What are you looking at me for? Tell us what's ahead of us. So we have announcements, dear friends. You are invited to a Unity Day, a World Unity Day for pure increasing joy. This Unit Day will take place on Saturday, March 23rd, 2024. For details and registration, enter convention C.1 and our broadcast schedule for today. Sunday noon we will have the afternoon lesson at 5:30 p.m. We're reading the study of the 10 at 6:30 building a spiritual society, and at 7:30 p.m. Israel time we're reading the Z, and we will conclude with a so for foreign speech, for speech, foreign speech, for speech, for there's for speech, for speech for speech, for spe la e for